Good morning, everyone. We're at the appointed hour. If I can have you all take your places, please. Okay, welcome to the Peel Police Services Board public meeting of Friday, October 24th, and we start with our Indigenous land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, on which the region of Peel operates, is within the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat nations. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have inhabited and cared for this land and continue to do so today. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in this territory, and in doing so, respect the land's significance for all people in Peel. With that, our roll call, all members are present, and Mayor Brown is right here. He's just dealing with some media as we speak, but he was here this morning bright and early at 8:30 with the rest of us. Declarations of conflict of interest to my colleagues. I see none. Chief, over to you for your update.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. I do want to acknowledge that we've had a really obviously busy month with a lot of high-profile incidents bringing us into the forefront. But despite that, the work continues, and we're appreciative of the board's support. Not only last night's retirees function with President Woolley and Trevor Arnold, who hosted it, and we were privileged to see our retirees that have served their community, civilian and sworn, so well. And thank you, Chair, for obviously being there, and board members for Bowden and Samita and Mr. Serpe. We also had our foundation launch recently, which I think board member Collier will speak to. From a Chief's update standpoint, I think I'm going to hand it over to Deputy O'Duarty, and then perhaps Deputy DePatt, and then maybe just we want to acknowledge the tremendous attention that's been in the media with the homicide that we had recently, which has obviously captured hearts and minds of those harmed by intimate partner and domestic violence, which continues to be a significant pressure for us. So, Anthony.
Okay, good morning, and through the chair, just want to update the board on an item that has been a topic of conversation over the years, and that is centers around disclosure of Crown briefs, which a couple years ago, including last year, led to some considerations by the Crown's office to start staying cases because disclosure was not being provided on time. With the tsunami of data that we collect now in every criminal brief that goes to court, and just a number of briefs, part of that budget last year was to fund 9 officers to dedicate their time to getting rid of the backlog that has been in existence for about 5 years to the Crown's office. Day service for Crown disclosure to for criminal briefs to our Crown Attorney's office, which is incredible and allows the Crown Attorneys now time to review and process that in court. So there's no longer a backlog, and we continue to provide that. There's a benefit to this as well. It allows our supervisory officers, our sergeants on the road, to get back on the road and not split their time as much between reviewing these court packages and allow them to supervise the officers. And there's also kudos to the officers who are involved in preparing these briefs for welcoming the process, preparing the Crown briefs, and then having the dedicated team provide that information. So it's an excellent return on the officers and the investment that we put into these officers. It's certainly welcomed by the Crown. The last point I'll make on this is, unfortunately, there's a negative impact in fact that it causes more briefs for the Crowns to review and may require attention on the justice side now from our ministry. So thank you for that. One other piece I would like to update the board on is a public-facing dashboard that we were hoping to release in November. In fact, we will release in November, but likely more public in January once we have a completely revamped website. It will provide the community and the board transparent information on crime trends and patterns, much of which you will see today, but it will be a more informed approach on how we demonstrate that. Call volumes and response times, human resource related statistics, including our complement numbers, our uniformed civilian cadet, will have information related to the composition of our organization and our financial reporting, which I know that we're going to hear some of that today. So that is coming in November, likely be published on our new website in January.
Good morning, and thank you, Chief. Good morning, and through you, Chair, through the board. I just wanted to provide an update that Peel Regional Police last month launched a dedicated hate crime unit. As you know, the province awarded us through the Community Safety and Policing Grant to augment the way that we investigate and support victims of hate crimes, and the team under Community Safety and Wellbeing created a dedicated unit, which will now bring focus and expertise and specialization. The aim of this unit will be to really guide the victims and the broader community throughout the court process because of the various traumas that reverberate through the community when a crime like this occurs. We're really excited to see how this unfolds. And we're also working with partners from various agencies, over 25 of them, in fact, that are helping to inform the community, encourage them to report because we know that it's vastly underreported, and also provide more education on what a hate crime actually is so that we can make sure that we respond as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Chief, back to you. Anything else?
Just Deputy Milosh.
Thank you, Chief, and through the chair. Definitely think it's worth acknowledging one of the tragedies that we experienced this week and our members responded to. We had an intimate partner violence homicide that occurred earlier this week. It's made, as the chief acknowledged, created some conversations certainly in our community and highlighted again more opportunities for change and improvement. You know, what I would say to the board specific to this is the things that our police service and our police services board have been advocating for have created some conversation, and I hope to see that it results in change that prevents these types of deaths from happening again. Thank you, Chair.
Chief, I'm going to ask you to top up on that because, you know, we recently had the symposium on intimate partner violence, and I think some friends in the audience as well and the public at large, and you'll be coming back to council, speaking to what the state of affairs was internally and how many people we had resourced just a few years ago, which wasn't many, and how many were resourced just on intimate partner violence. So the Chief, the great symposium that we had and where we are and where we hope to be and where we've come from on that file.
Thank you, Chair. And you're absolutely right. The top 2-3 calls for service that we attend are either mental health or addictions, and the other side is intimate partner violence or family disputes. And it is one of the growing trends we see in our region. We acknowledge, and the region itself, and thanks to your team at the region to making it a priority for us as not just an advocacy item, but on my side of the house, our role is to make sure that the organization appropriately responds to intimate partner and family violence. 5 years ago, we relied on our amazing women and men in uniform and our investigative teams in the divisions to single-handedly deal with intimate partner violence. We know that it's a complex one, a situation where how we deal with trauma and victims are very important. Having people that are specially trained is you know, probably a sector-wide standard. So, you know, we've gone to not only that extent, but we've embedded them with our multi-sector partners at obviously at Safe Center Appeal, which we know we're going to be opening a Mississauga location of Safe Center Appeal. But that requires resources. And for the public to deny that intimate partner and family violence is not an issue, it requires our efforts to make sure we do our part. Is it a perfect model? We work through a lot of difficulties. It's not easy to have officers embedded with community agencies, but we're doing it. Thankful to the board and council for supporting us to resource that appropriately. We will be at almost 70, 80 officers by the end of next year. And can I tell you, we are helping survivors and victims get connected to resources right away, and hopefully mitigating. And I think, Mr. Bowden, you say it well. We don't know what we don't know, but the point being is we want to prevent things from happening. So thanks to our women and men that are in those specialty teams.
Really appreciate the update. Thank you. Chief, if there's nothing further, I'll now go to the board for any questions or announcements at this time. Vice Chair Coley.
Okay, I think it's on. I'm still learning this new system. A couple of things, and first of all, I just want to even top up on what the chief just updated, but just the work that the IPV team is doing is just phenomenal, and hearing from our survivors and what you guys did was just, I mean, I know there's more to come, more to share, but thank you for the work that the teams are doing. So a couple of things. This is Women's History Month, and it's already coming near the end of this month, but I'm very much looking forward to the Women's ISN is holding actually an event on Sunday, and I'm very much looking forward to attending it. I know we have some phenomenal leaders speaking on the panel. I was hoping that Deputy Milenovich could just top up on that a little bit about the event that's coming up on Sunday.
There we go. You know what? I want to thank you for that, Vice Chair Coley. Not only the opportunity to speak about it, but the support of our Women's Internal Support Network. We are holding an event in recognition of October, and we're going to have a keynote speaker. Her name is Nichelle Loss, and she really is, you know, a person who has experienced previous experience in policing, in business, an author. In addition to that, we're going to have a number of panelists, of which one will be former Peel Regional Police Officer Don Orr. And the intent of the event, and I really like this, is it's about inspiring generations. You know, as a father of daughters, it's important that our organization and our membership supports one another. But what is also important is that we build into that through reaching into the next generation so that we can make it better for women and really gender equality within our police service and beyond. So something I'm incredibly proud of, and I will take no credit for it. It is entirely the responsibility in that type of work, entirely the responsibility of our Women's Internal Support Network, which again, very well supported by the Chief and our Police Service Board.
Thank you so much. It's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so I know I love seeing all the pink and all of our officers, but just it's important very much. I know many have been touched by that, and many families have been, so I just want to recognize all the work that's being done and all the efforts being made by Peel Police. Finally, I want to recognize this past month, the Chief held the Chief's Gala, and it was phenomenal. I do want to recognize the entire planning team that went behind it, but especially Martin Ottaway, who's the Chief's executive officer, who is now very much an expert at this. But what I will say, and really stood out for me, was the generosity of the attendees in supporting. All the proceeds went to the Peel Police Foundation. And I think it's just a really good opportunity, Chief, if you could maybe top that up, but even share a little bit more about the foundation. I think all of us are trying to do that on our end. I know many say, how do I support? It's such a great way to support and what you guys are trying to do with it. So if you wanted to maybe just add to that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coley, and through the chair. You know, I tell this story about two things can be true at once. We do have a role to respond to one of the fastest growing regions that is unlike anywhere else in the world. And the pressures that we see, no doubt, require women and men on the streets to be well equipped and to do their work and to meet the needs of the community. But we also do believe that supporting the community as a strong systems leader is our responsibility. And we know we do that with you, the region, both the city of Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. And the inception of a foundation, a not-for-profit charitable entity, is a beautiful thing, because what it does is allow us to press into those spaces where we see the needs in the community and have funds delivered to programs that meet our community safety well-being strategies. So youth, mental health addictions, precarious housing, all the issues we see in the community, this foundation is going to be able to support those programs where not-for-profit social service agencies can partner with us to do that. And this gala, without a doubt, has I think, Marty, not to jump ahead, but I think that one night event raised over $600,000. And then with what we have done throughout the year is 500. We're probably going to exceed 1.2 million in 1 year. And none of it goes to us. We're not buying K9 units or drones and things like that. It's going to our community agencies and partners. And one of the things we talked about, I've said this, is a lot of gaps in our ability to serve youth, mental health, addictions. And can I tell you, we'll be doing some amazing things. And that's concurrent to all the good work that our women and men do on a day-to-day basis. So I do appreciate the board's support, Chair. I know you're part of our board for the foundation, but you're right. We would not be able to do this without members of the community that believe in us, that want to see this community safer and stronger, and want to be a part of the equation. We've been very thankful for their donations. So appreciate you highlighting that, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Carby, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I think our Vice Chair saw my notes, so thank you for that, for highlighting that first item, which was the first of my my two items I wanted to. I think the work of the foundation is just phenomenal in terms of what it will be able to do to provide upstream supports for those organizations doing that kind of work. But the second item I wanted to raise as chair of the GHR committee is to continue to highlight the community consultations, which are ongoing. We have had 2 consultations so far on September 22nd and the last October 14th, where we talked about predictive modeling and policing and the intersection of that with community perspectives. And I want to thank Dr. Kanika Samuels-Wortley, who is a professor and criminologist, who was our subject matter expert who led the conversation there. I also want to thank our public policy specialist, Claudia McCoy, who brought perspective around the consultations she has been having also in community. But more thanks to the community members who actually came out with deputations and shared both live in the room, and we had a fairly full room that night. I want to thank all those community members for leaning into this discussion, and for those who joined online also. I think it's very important that our community members seek the opportunity to give us their feedback. We're moving forward or looking at how AI will, intersect with policing, but we won't do this without community consultations, and the services leaning much into that with the support of the board. Now, the next one is happening on November the 4th, and on that one, we'll be talking about importance of privacy, data protection, and policy around AI implementation. So this is probably the most significant one in terms of community engagement. So I want to invite community members to take the opportunity to engage again, both online or in person, and do deputation so that we can hear your feedback on the last of the 3 consultations that we'll be having. Again, it's on November the 4th, starting at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get on to the agenda. I do want to acknowledge, though, that Adian and Trevor, Mr. Woolley and Arnold are here again on behalf of the service and of the association. Very good to have you out as always. Okay, on with the agenda. First item I have is Vice Chair Coley has moved the minutes of the board meeting of September 26, and the motion reads that the minutes of the board meeting held Friday, September 26, be adopted as read. Any questions, comments, amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor, that is carried. That takes us on to deputations. We have 2. First up, Mike Harris, Applewood Hills and Heights Residents Association, deputation regarding the proposed 2026 Peel Regional Police budget. Mr. Harris, welcome, and please come forward.
I see a red light. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Distinguished guests and honorable members and police services, I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate the time. So today is a glorious day. It's Friday, October 24th. in the year of our Lord 2025, and we are on the threshold of something big tonight. So we all know it's been 32 years since the Toronto Blue Jays made it to the World Series. So we're all very excited in Mississauga, in Toronto, Ontario, and nationally. We're very proud and very excited. In the same way, myself being, I live in Mississauga, we are very excited, and we see a great opportunity to work with our policing and our city council and our mayors to work together to seize an opportunity in working together. By way of profession, my background is in management, in sales, and in sales management and business. And now that I'm in my 60s, I have slowed down a little bit, or semi-retired. And so what came to mind recently was some large property tax increases through the city of Mississauga that we've noticed recently. It's fairly well known. So I have joined the Applewood Hills and Heights Association, where we have addressed this with the Mayor Carolyn, Mayor Parrish, and the various council members. Is quite concerning that we're almost looking at double-digit growth of our property taxes. In fact, if you were paying roughly $7,000 a few years ago, it's probably up at $9,000 or $10,000. So it's very concerning for somebody like myself who is geared down and not making nearly as much money as I used to. It's very, very difficult. And as you can see around us, the economy is not very, very good as well. I have a number of friends who are well-educated with backgrounds who cannot find work. I have friends and relatives who are in the construction industry who cannot find work because it's slowed right down. And in fact, right here in Brampton, Stellantis looks like it's closing down and will probably lay off hundreds, if not thousands of people. So we're in a tight economy. We're looking for fiscal restraint. We're looking for the belt tightening, and we want to work with you folks. We believe the Peel Police are some of the best officers and well-trained officers in the country, if not the world. You have equipment and facilities that are second to none. We're extremely proud of it. We love what you do. What we're looking for is some belt tightening, some visibility. Some of the other concerns is we don't have visibility or we lack transparency into the budget process and the budget numbers. It's my understanding that the budget comes in kind of one lump sum. Here's the budget. I believe in last year, for 2025, coming into 2025, I believe the budget had gone up about 21% from the previous year, which included 300 officers. So I think we're all aware that crime has been increasing. I personally have had my house broken into and my car stolen out of my driveway, so I see it. The crime is there. We're happy to have officers. We're looking for a little transparency. Maybe we can work with you. The opportunity is there is to work with the Peel Police and the Services Board to work together on how can we find some efficiency, how can we maybe reduce some redundancies, reduce some duplication. These are some of the things. And then the other thing I believe is that we don't, in Mississauga, I believe there's an external auditor. And I don't believe we have a third-party, independent external auditor for the Peel Police budget. So we were asking if we can facilitate that or work with you on that so that we have some visibility, some transparency, maybe a little bit of feedback on the budget process.
Okay, thank you. Some questions first. Councillor Honey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And not necessarily a question, but I want to start off with a thank you, Mike, for coming. I'm over here. Remember me? We've talked. Yes. I start off with a thank you. I mean, I know that we have talked. I know Athena's here with you from the Applewood Association, and you've been engaged at the City of Mississauga through the budget process as an association, as a community. We hear you as a city councillor and representing, Mississauga Council. We understand the challenges. I mean, the tax increases were unprecedented, not just related to police, but in general. But the fact that you take the time to come here and give a very thoughtful deputation to express kind of your concerns, but also your willingness to work with not only Peel Regional Police, with the police board, but also with City Council on the challenges that we do face, shows that you're taking action, which is really something that I always encourage residents to do. It is a challenge, but it's easy to send an email and say, we don't agree with this, but you're obviously here as a group, as an organization, as a resident to work on solutions. I believe Peel Regional Police, I can say, are always very open to conversations, as is the police board. I encourage you to stick around as well today for the budget presentation and for the deliberation, so you can hear some of the things that we've all been working on as a police service board, as well as police service, to try to find solutions. What I can tell you is we hear you. We understand, and I can assure you we're listening. So it's one of those things that we want to work together, not only with yourself, but with residents across the region of Peel, to not only understand the challenges, but work together on solutions. So, Mr. Chair, I don't have a question per se, but really just wanted to thank the deputy for coming. And I think this is important conversations that we're having. And again, the fact that you've taken the time to come here shows a lot. And whether it's today or going forward, I can assure you my door is always open. And I believe that us as a collective group, our door will always be open to be able to work with you and the residents, not only to understand the challenges, but to find solutions. So thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to thank you for your presentation. I've got some comments as well, but I'm going to wait for the second deputant who's up next. So, Mike, thank you very much for your presentation. Receipt's been moved by Councillor Mahoney. All those in favor, that is carried. Next up, I have Sue Shanley, President, Mississauga Residents Association, Miranet. And Sue, I understand you are here with us virtually today. So the technical people are going to help me get you up on the screen. Appreciate everybody's patience.
Hello.
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Sue?
Wonderful. Yes, I
Okay.
can. Thank you so much.
I still can't see you on my screen, but maybe I'm going to have you proceed just the same because we can hear you, you can hear us, and we'll carry on, and maybe we'll get a visual soon enough. So, Sue, please. Oh, there you are. All good. Wonderful.
I'm here now. Wonderful.
And I can
Thank
see you.
very
Perfect.
much.
Sue, please proceed.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And good morning, all the members of the Police Service Board. I'm here again to make a deputation following my deputation this past earlier in the year in regards to the Police Service Board and its budget. And just again to reiterate what we are hearing at Miranet. Miranet is the Mississauga Residents Association Network. And really, Mike has said a lot of what we are hearing from residents associations and residents across Mississauga. We are struggling. The economy has gone south even further than it was earlier this year. And people are struggling. And again, we would like the Police Services Board to try to find efficiencies in this year's budget and even more particularly moving forward for next year's budget. The financial impact of yours, the region's, and the city's budget is being felt. And it actually has been the #1 concern this past year over crime. And crime, as you all know, is a big concern to all of us in Mississauga, Brampton, and the region as a whole. How can Mississauga homeowners stay in their homes in the face of such property tax increases that we felt this past year and the last year, and we're going to feel again this next year? We're concerned. We're concerned about our seniors being able to stay in their homes. They cannot afford this type of increase. And we're afraid that they're going to move out of Mississauga. In turn, we're also concerned that this is going to prevent younger residents and young families from moving in to the region of Peel. Again, as I said earlier this year, the Police Service Board needs to be accountable, and transparent. As I mentioned earlier in my deputation earlier this year, we need transparency and we need public accountability. In other words, we'd like to see a line-by-line budget. We understand that the judicial system needs to be reformed, and we are working on that through other measures, and we will continue to advocate for that. Miranet notes that Mississauga, again, is required to fund 62% of the police budget. We still feel that this adds to the problem that we have in paying that 62% is, again, a huge increase for us as Mississauga residents. We would look forward to liaising with you and discussing with you ways that we can find efficiencies so that the burden on the taxpayer is less moving forwards, so people can afford to stay in their homes, afford to live in the region of Peel, and avoid going to the food banks and becoming homeless. This is, again, as I said, the number one concern that we've been hearing this past 8 months is not the crime so much, is the increase to our taxes. So I just wanted to reiterate this and let you know we are willing to work with you as a residents association network to work on efficiencies. And thank you so much. And I appreciate you listening to me this morning.
Thank you. Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Sue. Nice to see you virtually. I know we have chatted many, many times as well. Without repeating my thank you as I did to Mike, I certainly do want to thank you for your advocacy and dedication on behalf of Miranet. One area that I just wanted to touch on, and I just wanted clarity here publicly, the 62-38% has nothing to do with the police board or the police service. So understanding the challenge that puts on Mississauga, that decision is not made around this table. That decision is strictly with the province. They are the ones who make it. So I know that this often does come up in budget discussions, but again, I just wanted to put some, and the frustration I certainly share, but this is not a decision that's made around this table. So I do want to certainly just address that publicly. And Sue, again, I will keep it short. I know that the chair maybe has a couple of comments at the end, but want to thank you. And I think, as I said it after Mike's deputation, I believe the board and police service is always happy to work. And this is a process we're going through. This is the first budget presentation here to the police service, and then it will go to the region. And I know we will be seeing you and other folks coming out and welcome your continued input on the budget as we go forward. Thanks.
Thank you. If there's no other questions as well, Councillor Mahoney, quite rightly, your first comments were to thank these delegations, and I am very grateful to you as well. Very civil, very proper. This is what the whole process is about, and we'd almost welcome more of this from people to let us know, because we want to be transparent and open. We're having budget sessions with public budget sessions with council next week that anybody can attend, et cetera, et cetera. But Mike, at the risk of making light of this, but I've just met you, but I read people well. I think you're going to like this analogy. I start with a bit of an analogy that's half a joke. And you know, a lot of jokes start with the line, a guy walks into a bar. So a guy walks into a bar and he walks up to the bar and he looks a little down, and the bartender, how you doing? Oh, I need a drink, make it a double. And he goes, okay, why are you so down? Well, you know, I just had my car stolen right out of my freaking garage. Came in, I don't know how they did, it's gone. Oh yeah, and it's bad because, you know, same house, a couple of years ago, my house was broken into. And come to think of it, is when I moved into the house about a decade ago, it was broken into then. And then it bothers me that my kids walk into school and he was assaulted. Mike, that's not a guy in a bar. That's me. That's my lived experience. The point of my story is, and I'm not a guy you'll ever find in a bar, those that have known me all my life, no, I'm just not that guy. But I use the analogy for this reason. If you're that guy that walks into the bar, and this is remarkable because I've used the analogy before, you just played into my analogy because you were the guy beside me that said, isn't that funny you say that? Because my car was stolen as well, and your house was broken into. That's where I usually go with that idiom. Because afterwards somebody said, well, it wasn't me, but my neighbors down the road had somebody break into their house and this happened. And on and on and on it goes. I was born and raised in Mississauga. I was born there 64 years ago, almost to the day a few days ago. And I do not remember the level of crime that we've had up until now. That's not just anecdotal, the stats bore that out. But the more important point I want to make is when I was born, Mississauga was 278,000 people. We're coming up on 1 million. And during virtually all of my existence, there was 11 division, 12 division, 21 division, 22 division. Only now are we increasing the physical infrastructure for policing. In that time, Councillor Mone, I think I counted, we've opened 11 community centers, libraries, all the new schools, et cetera, et cetera. We never did it on the policing file. So in some form of defense, we're playing a lot of catch up. With regards to the 300, and I want to take the bullet on behalf of all of us, pardon the pun, it was time that we really needed to bump up our forces, but there was a demographic issue at play. This is why I welcome you being here, because we get a chance to converse. So demographics mean the world to me. Dr. Foote's book, Boom, Bust, and Echo, it speaks to so much of what goes on in the world, and I am a tail end baby boomer now. So we are going to be losing a lot of cops and government workers right now, because if you're born between 45 and 61 like me, your time is run out, you're getting pensioned off at 30. So we have to replace a lot of the officers. That's true everywhere. Here's one of the challenges that is unique about policing, and it's the same with just like school teachers as well, kind of get paid the same across the province. So that's our problem. Because if I could do this job in Mississauga and buy a starter condo of 800 square feet for $1 million, or if I can do the job in small town Ontario, buy the estate lot for $600,000, but still get paid the same amount of money virtually, like any other teacher, like any other police officer, that's where they're going. By the way, their evening shift on a Friday night working for the police service might not be like a lot of evening shifts in the greater metropolitan Toronto area. Let's just say maybe there's a little bit less crime. All that to say, this is the point I'm coming to. In the recent era with the marvelous chief and service that we have, a lot of people look to us as their preferred employer for policing. And one of the deliberate things that I and we said was, let's take advantage of the team that we have, because in a competitive marketplace where they can work in St. Catharines, they can work in Grimsby, they can work in Kapuskasing, people like to work with us now, notwithstanding the high cost of living, et cetera, et cetera. We needed to prime the pump and get some of these individuals now that value us as an employer because they can go anywhere else. The other challenge that we have was, it's not up to us just to hire officers. We have to get them through the training process that we don't control, the province of Ontario. But because they hold us in high regard and the great work that this chief and our team has done, and some of us on the political front, they said, you bring us the offers, we will get your PL officers through the system. And I'm proud of the decision we made because we primed the pump and got our officers through when everybody else is playing catch up now and they can't get their officers through. And that was one of the reasons why we said, let's bite the bullet now. At least we will have the officers when we need them. Now everybody's coming forward. They're going to be opening new colleges, but there's going to be a real bottleneck at the colleges. At least we have the new officers for the new division in Brampton. A new one soon to be announced in your neck of the woods down at the south end of Mississauga that we've craved for years. And that requires the officers to staff them. The last one that I'll touch upon is, and it's just the fact of life in policing, 94% of all the money goes to the boots on the ground. It's people and personnel. That's where all the money, it isn't the bricks and the mortar, it isn't the uniforms, it isn't the equipment. So to get officers on the street, 94% of every penny we spend pays the wages and the benefits. So if you want policing, and for example, that's why I asked the question earlier, Mike, intimate partner violence, who doesn't know it's a nightmare? 5 years ago, we did not have a dedicated officer on that file. Now we have almost 70, 80. I think we could use another 70, 80. Sad as that is. So I welcome these conversations because you get an insight into where we're at. Boy, was it a big number. Yeah, but we were at the precipice, speaking for myself, that, and again, only speaking for myself, crime is up, and we're also privy to information of where the crime is coming from, the nature of the crime. And If you don't deal with crime, it'll increase in your community, or you can deal with it and maybe it gets deflected somewhere else. We didn't want to be the first choice for the Hells Angels or people like that. We wanted people like that in organized crime, and so much of it is organized now, to know that we will fight back against you. And I believe it's working. We still have a long way to go. We've paid a price. We are mindful of your comments. And the last one that I'll leave you with as well, on behalf of the board, is at the end of the day, our mandate is, as a separate standalone entity, is to provide adequate and effective policing. Rightly or wrongly, there's no caveat that says, but be mindful of the tax bill you send out. In fact, it would almost be illegal for me to say, I know we need more cops, but I don't want to burden taxpayers with that. So you're not going to provide the level of policing that your community needs to be safe. It's a tough balancing act. It's a tough balancing act. But for all of those reasons, I just wanted you to understand, and I'm a civilian. I'm not one of these heroes over here. In fact, it's funny, almost 37 years ago to the day, the people in the Applewood community elected me for the first time. You were one of my old constituencies. So I'm on your side in this. But those are just some, and again, I'll end with that analogy in the bar. That's how I like to talk to people, that just like you, it does. Those are your fundamental point is still the same. And we all pay property tax, and my tax has gone up, I think, $6,000 in the time I've been on the board. That's not what I pay, that's what it's gone up. Happy to pay it, I'm in a position to pay it, but we need the resources, they have to be paid for. Your message is received loud and clear. Okay, understand where we're coming from. Can you balance it out a little more? Because that's a fair argument. We primed the pump this year and this last year for the reason that I gave and the board understood. Can we hope for a moderating trend? Yes, I think we've received that message, but it was a pivotal moment where we wanted to get the officers that we needed through the system, and we were successful. And I conclude where you and I both started. Your house has been broken into, mine. Your car's been stolen, mine. All these. We don't have to debate that crime is a challenge. We have a responsibility to meet it head on, and we have, but continue to be mindful of it. Comes at a cost. Please note that the cost is burdensome to us. Message received loud and clear. So thank you to you. Thank you to Sue. I hope that helps. I don't know if any of my other colleagues wanted to share a thought or two, but trust me, at every board meeting, what you speak to, and at budget meetings, the very same topic comes up, everything that I've tried to touch upon. So with thanks to both of you for your deputy, we welcome you next week when we have the full budget presentation before council. Questions can be asked, etc. We welcome the transparency, and we've heard that message loud and clear as well. So with that, Councillor Mahoney, I'm going to ask you to move receipt of all the delegations, and thank you very much for being here today. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you all. Okay. Next, we have a presentation, item 3.1, from the Community to Career Inspiring the Next Generation, a presentation to be provided by Superintendent Dyson Smith and Inspector Elaine Fowler. Welcome. Please, Mark, if you wanted to set this up, please, Deputy.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. And through you, Chair, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Superintendent Dyson Smith and Inspector Elaine Fowler from our Recruiting and Training Bureau. You said it very well in your comments just a few moments ago, Chair, that the Recruiting Bureau is operating in an environment in the GTA where it is very competitive. So for a candidate to look at Peel Regional Police as their employer of choice requires a dedicated initiative where we are going to hire the very best that we possibly can so that our services and our programs and our interactions with the community are at the highest level. And I'm very proud of the team. I'm going to take a moment just to say this is no small feat. This is the biggest hiring initiative in the 50-year history of the Peel Regional Police, and we absolutely needed to do it. So kudos to Superintendent Smith and Inspector Fowler. Behind them, there's an entire team that the organization and the board has stood behind, including President Woolley and the association. And they'll provide an update on where we're at with Project 300 and the hiring, and I'll turn it over to them. Thank you.
Well,
good morning, through you, Chair, and thank you, Deputy, for the introduction. It is our pleasure to present to you a high-level overview of our outreach initiatives, as well as an update on Project 300. I want to start by outlining our corporate development mission statement, which is through progressive, innovative, and inclusive strategies, corporate development will identify, hire, and train the next generation of police leaders. So to align with, getting ahead of myself. To align with this initiative and this mission statement, I'd like to begin discussing our outreach team and our recruiters, and Acting Staff Sergeant Leon Stewart, who's here in the galley, who oversees this team. They have been working diligently to attend numerous community events, implement new initiatives, and to promote employee engagement within Peel Regional Police. To date, we have attended over 265 community events. And this not only supports, I'd like to provide you with a quick snapshot through a video of some of our community initiatives that we've been doing. So as you can see through the video, we've been attending and very engaged within our community. And we just want to take a moment to really thank the board. We really appreciate your support and attending so many of these community events. So thank you. So I want to start just by highlighting a couple of our initiatives. And the first one I want to talk about is our social media recruitment team. We have 2 civilians that are embedded into our recruitment bureau that really focus on promoting sworn and civilian career opportunities within Peel Regional Police. And within the generation, we understand how important it is to get that message out through social media. And I will tell you that right now we've posted, just for Project 300, over 350 posts online. We have, within the year, we have doubled our followers to over 36,000 people. And that is an average growth of 100 a week. We are the highest recruiting platform across the GTA. So I just want to say a shout out to the team for that, because we do appreciate how important it is to be out on social media. And one of the things that the social media recruiting team is doing, that they're also helping promote our outreach and our initiatives. As you can see on the slide, there's a lot of initiatives that we've attended. But the one that I'm going to just highlight today is our most recent initiative, which is called RISE. And that stands for Resilient, Inspiring, Strong, and Empowerment. And what it is we identify potential female applicants that are connected with current female officers. And these officers help guide, support, and mentor these potential applicants. It's an 8-week program, and is scheduled to end on December the 2nd. And I'm proud to say we've already hired females from this program, and it has been very successful. So that's one of the initiatives. Now I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Dyson Smith, who's going to talk about additional initiatives.
Thank you, Elaine, and through you, Chair. I'm just going to touch on a couple of things and a mindset shift that we've taken on in recruiting. Chair, you were speaking to the challenges we face in recruiting. Obviously, there's economics and things like that. And the chief was speaking about some of the challenges that we're facing as a police service. One of the things that we really want to focus on is hiring the right people. Years ago, we had a recruitment strategy that was Why Not You? And we were dedicated to introducing the profession of policing to people who may not have considered it otherwise. We've taken on a mindset shift. We're switching Why Not You to We Want You. And what I mean by that is we're doing targeted recruiting. We are actively going out into the community, looking for the best of the best, and then telling those individuals that we want them to be a part of our team. Peel Regional Police is an exceptional organization, and to keep it such, we need exceptional people. We need people that want to be part of the most progressive, innovative, and inclusive organization in Canada. And I know that sounds like I'm saying words, but what we're able to do for people, for those truly exceptional individuals, is whether you want to change the way policing's done through some of our progressive strategies, or if you want to do very, very high-level traditional investigations, like some of our organized crime investigations, we offer people the ability to do that, or to do either of those things. That's what makes us truly unique in the GTA, and when dealing with the economics of the option to live in a small town and have that estate lot, like you said. Quite frankly, the opportunities we present here to exceptional people are second to none. You get to be part of something truly special. You can change the way we do things, but also the exposure we have with the criminality we have really appeals to some people. So to that end, we've undertaken a number of strategies this year to identify those exceptional people. And the first one I'm going to speak about is a partnership that we have with Ontario University Athletics. University students in Ontario, and specifically athletes, have all the traits that we're looking for in policing. They are intelligent, they are dedicated, they think critically, and most importantly, they are conditioned to be part of a team. So this partnership that we have with the OUA gives us exclusive access to every university in the province, to their athletic directors, their teams, their coaches, and we're actually going out to them saying to the coaches, look, this is the kind of person we're looking for. Can you give us some referrals? Similarly, I know a lot of athletes, I was one, we grow up being recruited. And when somebody comes to you and says, I want you to come to my school, I want you to be part of this service, it means a lot. It does. It gets it in their head and they're thinking about it through their whole career. You know, that day comes for student athletes where they play their last game. And when they're done and they're thinking about what am I going to do next, we want to be what they're thinking of. So to that point, in the last 18 months, we've hired 17 OUA athletes. That's before our strategy. Our strategy just really took off in mid-August. And since then, we have almost 30 people in the pipeline to be recruited. So it's going very, very well. To that end, the other thing we're doing is we're partnering with local post-secondary institutions that offer degrees in criminal justice, policing, criminology, and things like that. We're speaking to those professors. We've got partnerships with them to find out the best of their students, and then we're recruiting them directly. And the last thing that I want to touch on, and I'd like to thank Acting Staff Sergeant Stewart for making this happen for us, is nobody knows better what it takes to be an effective Peel police officer than Peel police officers. So just this week, we're able to launch an app on every one of our work phones that connects every officer with our recruiting unit. And on it, it has a QR code. It's actually the one that's up there. And what they're able to do then is when we come across exceptional people in the community, whether it's at something like an outreach event, on a call, we come across remarkable people every day. And now every one of our officers and our employees has the ability to click on an app on their phone and give that person a QR code that will put them directly into contact with our recruiting unit. So at zero cost, which I know matters, we've effectively increased our recruiting unit by over 3,000 people. We expect that to be highly, highly effective. So to sum it up, we were unwilling to compromise in this endeavor to hire 300 people. We were absolutely unwilling to compromise the quality of applicants that we're going after. We are going after the best of the best, and we're coming up with strategies to bring them on board our team. With that, I'll turn it back over to Elaine.
And to conclude our presentation, I just want to give you an update on Project 300. I'm pleased to report that we've officially hired 288. We are ahead of schedule, and we are anticipated a target date to officially reach the 300 hire on November the 4th. So we're excited about that. We're almost there, November the 4th. And with 30 Forward in mind, the team has continuously been working hard to focus on increasing female representation. So in the 3 classes that we just currently had for Project 300, collectively we've had 36 females. I'm pleased to say that the efforts that the team has put in that started at the beginning of the year, we are now seeing how it has impacted and increasing our female representation. So in class 4, that's coming up, which is November the 27th, we will have 18 to 20 females in this class alone. So it just shows that the effort that they've put in is now starting to see the benefits of that. And we will continue that momentum going into 2026 as well. Thank you.
And just in closing, again, I'd really like to thank the board for your support in this endeavor. It has been a challenge, but you have been steadfast and very, very vocal champions and very, very supportive of that. The one thing that I've learned, and we probably will do a lessons learned at the end of this, the one thing I've seen is whether it was Project 300 or 400, when our whole organization, with the support of the board, the PRPA, and everybody else, when we're all pulling in the same direction, we can accomplish truly remarkable things. So I really want to thank you for that. It's with your support, CMG and the organization's support, that we were able to achieve this. And sincerely, thank you very much.
Thank you. Great presentation. Questions? Vice Chair Coley.
Thank you. First of all, what a fantastic presentation. Thank you for that update. It's very exciting, I think, for all of us to say we're almost there with that number. A couple of things. One thing is, I'm a big believer that people work for people. And I know we say the organization and the name, but ultimately they're coming to work here and they stay here because the people around. I tell you, I've seen your teams firsthand. I see the leadership behind them, and I can completely see why people stay. They come in and then they stay. The mentoring, the coaching, the support that's being given throughout the entire process to them, and then them wanting to stay. I mean, I've seen it firsthand, but I just want to say great work on that and how you've brought everybody in. It's inclusive space. You make it a safe space for them. I've been to many of the Saturday morning or the Sunday when you've had them all in a room and you see their faces and they're just so excited, but then you see your teams and they're just ready to talk to them, engage them, offer their numbers to say, stay in contact with me as you're going through this. That is amazing and very rare and very supportive. So first of all, kudos to the entire team for creating such a positive environment. And we're so proud to hear that they want to come in. Second thing I want to talk about is social media, because I will tell you, it's phenomenal what you guys have done on social media. Organic growth like that is very rare. It's not even seen. So that's amazing work that you're doing. But I'll tell you, a big thing you've done is you've made it relatable. You're sharing stories of people's journey that have come in. They're real, or sharing what they've been through. That's really nice. And also the fact that you're constantly talking about how easy it is to come in and talk to us as you go through the journey. So someone who's thinking about it is now watching it, right? And they're going, okay, I could do that too. So thank you for changing the way your social media is. And it's funny too. At times it's quite funny. So it's great. It's good humor out there. I've seen it replicated by others. I'm just mentioning that. But I do love it. And finally, I think the big thing you've really shown today is efficiencies. You know, that QR code, what a brilliant idea, right? At no cost. I mean, that is so smart. I like that QR code. I want to just flash that. But I just want to mention that these are really good efficiencies. And the community events that you go out to, I do want to mention that a lot of them are happy to have you guys at no cost because they're just happy to have also Peel Police there. That's, again, in efficiencies. So one thing I do want to mention to everybody else, it's the same team that is not only going out in the 65 events, it's the same team that's also training, supporting, engaging, going through all those applications to get 300. I can't imagine the number you began with, right? To come down to that, to get the best of the best. So I don't know how you do it, but you're a mighty team and we're really proud of it. And I just say thank you so much for this. And we're excited for 300. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carby.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. You have certainly done a remarkable job in positioning PRP as a preferred place for work. And I can tell you in my interactions with officers, not just at the senior level, but frontline officers as I move around in community, the sentiments I'm getting is that they also feel that support and that PRP is the preferred place as an employer. I'd certainly like the "We want you here" or "We want you" slogan, which is shifting the narrative from just yes, you should choose us because it's a good place to be, but we want you because we choose you. So I think that's really good in terms of a marketing position. So good idea to doing that. There is a narrative, though, and I'll probably finish with this as a question, and the narrative is around that young people don't want to be police officers, and it's very difficult to find new recruits and all of that. So my question is, does the numbers bear that out? Overall, what percentage of the total number of applicants are successful? Has the number of applicants dropped? Are we finding it difficult to engage people in becoming officers? What's the overall, how do you combat that narrative that young people no longer want to be police officers?
Quite frankly, there may not be as many people that want to be police officers, but we're not having trouble finding people. Before this team was together with Project 300, we were well over 3,000 applicants a year. So if you take that and break it down, we're looking at a less than 10% chance of getting hired. So our officers that make it through the process, they are part of a very, very exclusive club. It is not easy to get hired. That being said, we're fully supportive and we want to get people there. But it's less than 1 in 10 based on our applicants. So again, we're focusing on trying to get the best, not just raw numbers. So there are plenty of people that want to be police officers still, and we're looking to get the best of them.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Boughton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, thanks for the presentation. It was great. As the dinosaur on the board, I get to tell the odd story, not just you, Chair. And through my career, you're always going on seminars and training, and there was one I went on, and it was the title of it was Enthusiasm Sells. So it was a matter of using all the people within your organization. So when we went to a convention, I brought not just the senior managers and the middle managers, we brought people from dispatch and our call center, and everybody came out. It was incredible how many applications for employment at our place, whether it be mechanics or dispatchers or whoever it was, would come after these events, because the enthusiasm of your own people was heard by the world when you're out there and they say, wow, is TrailCon really that good? It was really that good. When I see your officers out there and the level of enthusiasm, we were at an event last night, the retirement event, and when I was leaving, I ended up talking to some folks from K9. And their level of enthusiasm is really heartwarming. The best that we can do for putting people on the road is our own people selling what we are. I go to the airport show. You had the recruiting tent there at the Brampton Airport, and to see the level of professionalism and enthusiasm by the people who are talking, who your recruiters are talking to, John and JQ Public is great. And I think we can do very well, as Vice Chair Coley said, with the ability for the officers to say, here, just scan this and get in. And I think that, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, Chair, and I say this to the Chief as well and your team, this is a great moment in time for PRP, a great moment in time because of the level of enthusiasm we have and the confidence that we have. This board, with this management group, with the PRPA who are here with us today, this is a great time for us to recruit. And so that the people that come on realize that it's not just a pair of boots and they're going to be on patrol for the next 25 or 30 or 35 years, the employment opportunities within PRP, and then ultimately for the whole world opens up to them. And when you play for the best, the opportunities open up even more. And I always compare it to sports. Toronto Maple Leafs lose Mitch Marner, right? Do you know how they lost Mitch Marner? That's coming out now. The Four Nations Cup, because Mitch Marner was on the team, and guess who was yakking with him at those games? The players from Las Vegas, the Canadian players, and say, you're going to love it here. Well, guess what? We lose Mitch Marner because he wanted to go to what was deemed the best, because those players in Las Vegas sold that to a guy like Mitch Marner. And I think our people can do the same. So watching what you do as part of your duties is great, but we have the best officers in the world who can really have a positive effect our recruiting. So well done.
Thank you. And with that, Al, you're going to move receipt of the delegation. Thank you for your presentation. All in favor? That is carried. Okay. And now that brings us to item 3.2, the Peel Regional Budget Presentation. Chief, we're going to have you present the budget. Al, and as he's coming forward as chair of the committee, we might have you make an introductory comment regarding this year's budget process.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. As the chair of the Finance Committee, it is my privilege to provide some opening remarks in advance of the Chief's presentation of the 2026 budget. Under the Community Safety and Policing Act, the budget we present today is the board's budget. It is our responsibility to ensure Peel Regional Police has the resources it requires to deliver adequate and effective policing, while exercising strong oversight, sound governance, and accountability to Regional Council and ultimately to the community we serve. Last year, this board and council made an historic investment in public safety, one that was necessary to begin addressing the officer shortfall identified through our long-term staffing analysis. That decision was not made lightly, and it continued us firmly on the path toward the 600 additional members required to meet the needs of one of the fastest growing and most complex regions in the country. We also heard council's concerns during the 2025 budget deliberations, and we heard them clearly. This year, we approached the budget with an even greater emphasis on being thoughtful, careful, and respectful of the property taxpayer, while never losing sight of the core duty to preserve public safety. The 2026 budget reflects that balance. It maintains the momentum of our hiring plan with 175 new officers who are critical to frontline safety, but it does so while implementing responsible measures, a one-year reduction in capital reserve contributions, and mild restraint in the civilian hiring. These measures give us time to review our long-term capital plan and staffing model in advance of major infrastructure projects already in progress. The new 23 division in Northwest Brampton, the new operations center, the revitalization of the Sir Robert Peel Center and 22 division, and the land secured for a future division in South Mississauga. Taken together, these steps allow us to present a 9.9% increase for 2026, a budget that is both reasonable and necessary, and one that positions us for stability and more predictable funding models in 2027 and beyond. This budget reflects a board and a service that are forward-looking, responsible, and fully committed to the safety of our residents. It is a budget that invests wisely today while preparing Peel Regional Police to meet the challenges of tomorrow. With that, I will turn it over to the Chief to walk us through the details of this year's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boughton, and thank you to all of the members of the board. We know this process, even though we present today and we're before council on November 20th, almost immediately we start with you for a budget process. So I want to honor the fact that this has been almost a year in the making. And although it might seem like 20 minutes or 30 minutes before you, there's a lot of work that's gone through it. I do want to acknowledge CAO and Deputy Chief Lauren Jackson and her finance team who are here, obviously, to answer questions should there be any. But thank you to the board for the opportunity to present this. We know that, hey, listen, you hired us for a role to make sure this community can stay safe, so that as a result of it, we hope that it thrives, that children can thrive, families, businesses in this community. We're proud of this region, you know, our cities of Mississauga, Brampton, and of course our relationship with Caledon too are all so vital for it. And we want you to be proud of this organization. We do believe, and I know it sounds like we're swimming in our own fishbowl from time to time, but we are internationally known. And it's not only because of the work we do here, the women and men, the that are right now, while we're sitting here, are responding to calls for service, civilian sworn, are serving this community. So it's actually a privilege to present this to you as a board. When they get before the regional council, it is also a privilege because we believe it is meeting the needs of our community, and those needs are very serious. But we are a good organization, and I thank you for the opportunity. So one of the themes you'll see and hear is that we are staying relentlessly focused on the priorities of this community, and that is not wavering. It does not change from year to year, and we hope you do see that golden thread throughout this. You're absolutely right, Mr. Bowden. We are a unique community that has very complex challenges, and as such require a very unique response to that. And so with that, I do want to acknowledge that we are still the third largest municipal police agency in Canada. And we have very unique geographic, demographic, and economic pressures that make us much different. The largest airport, we know they want to get from 50 to 70 million passengers a year. With that comes the largest logistics hub outside of Los Angeles is right here in Peel Region. We have the confluence of all our major highways that bring things to us. And all the things that we celebrate, inclusive of our diversity and demographics, also bring us very tangible geopolitical international issues that I can tell you none of my other chiefs and colleagues have to deal with nationally. But these are the same things that present us an opportunity to resolve and do that. So our leadership in policing continues to be our forefront. It's not just our advocacy, but these are the things that make us good. So one of the things I do want to do before we get into obviously the budget and the financial elements is that, and I'm very thankful for you, Chair, and the board. I know Mayor Brown's not here, but you know, Councilor Mahoney and our municipalities and the board for coming alongside of us to be strategic in leadership on real national issues. We are absolutely at the forefront of advocacy in these spaces, and that's because we want to be transformative in every possible way. We know that technology is a huge element to this. We have tried to press into spaces that nobody else has. It's not because we want to be first, because we see an opportunity to ensure that we serve the community in a really thoughtful way. Our advocacy at the federal, provincial, and local level, without a doubt, I think all of you know this, not to be redundant on this conversation, is the heartbeat of what we do. And one of the things that we all believe on, and from the leadership team, my deputies and I, is that if we remain collaborative in every possible way, we will find better solutions. I think you all know our emphasis on community safety well-being is not doing things in silos, but doing things with other entities. But some of the accomplishments this year is, you know, the bottom left, I don't need to spell them all out. We're the only police agency to be listed in Forbes nationally and in the US as a top employer. I mean, part of that, the kudos goes to, you know, President Woolley and CAO Arnold for ensuring that the members are looked after, but we are lockstep with you as a board. And, you know, we saw the recruiting presentation. We want the best to be here. We're not only trying to hire to meet the needs of the community, we want good people to be here. And, you know, many of you have heard me say this, if we're not good on the inside, then we're not good on the outside when we intersect with the public. So this is part of our emphasis, obviously a very pro-public health and an emphasis on looking at the rights of individuals, but our people do an amazing job. And this is part of our unique environment. What I wanted to highlight to you is that, as I mentioned to you earlier, two things can be true at once, and that is the emphasis on upstream activities. And Deputy DePatt mentioned that we have now moved to a dedicated hate crime team, which we're thankful of last year's budget, which we know had a significant impact and still does on our community. But the outcome of it is meaning that we're serving the public better. And I hope to walk you through some of those changes that we're seeing already based on last year and to foreshadow what the coming year will have for us. But not only that is we heard in almost every community is the need for more visible presence and the expansion not only of our cross-functional support teams, which have shifted to some of the needs. We know the board has presented on that themselves, as we've done with the South Asian community and other communities. But the ability to have teams dedicated to community incident response, the officers on bikes, the project teams, our work with the region appeal on encampments. We know that many municipalities are plagued by it, but I can tell you that when we look at the holistic approach, have one of the best integrated response teams with the region appeal for encampments. The expansion of many of our areas and services and work with community agencies that mitigate harm, whether they be mental health or addictions, any of the systems pressures are at the forefront. And Deputy DePat's team in community safety wellbeing has been really remarkable with that, working with our frontline teams. These are examples that we continue to highlight because I do want to make sure people know that we do know that we need to hold those that are causing harm in the community accountable, but we do have a role to come alongside of our multi-sector agencies to make sure that we improve our response. And we talked about a little bit of that, inclusive of the opening of the Safe Center South in Mississauga, which we're looking forward to the announcement in the coming months. So speaking of that, we do want to highlight that there has been a 4% increase in the number of occurrences and responses to intimate partner or gender-based violence. Although we are making progress, it still becomes a priority because we know it is underreported. And perhaps this week's homicide is an illustration of that. We've heard the family speak about the number of times that the victim had experienced vulnerability, and for a variety of reasons, it goes unreported. But our response to this is unlike anything else in North America. We are the sort of the Cadillac version of our response to intimate partner violence, and such that we have up to 20 partner social service agencies alongside of us. And our intimate partner team is not in a police station, which is obviously poses many unique elements to it. But the need to serve the community, particularly in Mississauga, we're looking forward to the announcement, which I know the board will be a part of, is when we open the Safe Center of Peel South with our community partners. As you mentioned earlier, our emphasis on not just the crime or the offender is trying to put the emphasis back on victims and those that are impacted by it. Under the Police Services Act, which is now the Community Policing Act, one of our priorities, legislated priorities, is to serve victims of crime, which the public may wonder, is this a nice thing we're doing? No, this is actually the people that have the ripple effects, our communities, neighborhoods, and the individuals that are victims of crime. We heard Mr. Harris speak about, his home being broken into, a car being stolen. Those things cause ripple effects of harm right throughout the community. So we are thankful for the board. Mr. Serpe, thank you for the idea too that you presented to via the board to host this victim symposium, the first of its kind nationally, and it brought together other multiple police agencies and our community partners to put the focus on it. Out of it came 3 tangible pieces of action. One is advocacy for victims. The second is continued emphasis and resourcing to support our partner agencies that are in this space to come alongside of us. And then the final one, obviously, is for us on the policing side to ensure that we continue to put the victim first and that be the backbone of all of our investigations. So with that, I'll play this video for.
We're the parents of Darian Henderson Bellman, who was brutally murdered.
All too often, the focus is on the offender, but behind every one of these incidents is a victim, family, a
a community, a neighborhood. And the purpose of today is to shift the narrative back to the needs of those that are being harmed the most in our communities.
Well, this is a conversation that's not happening in Canada. Sometimes the stories of the victims get lost in our justice system, and today is about making sure their pain is not lost, that their voice is heard.
This is such an important event in helping us re-energize and push forward with the kinds of changes that we know are possible.
Peel is so far ahead of the game in so many ways. Policing in Peel has changed, and it's beginning to change the narrative. And is there a long way to go with our communities? Absolutely. So the shift in policing, the services coming together, has been so significant, and we as a community are reaping the benefits.
These aren't first-time offenders that are committing these crimes, so people who are already out on bail committing more serious crime is a growing epidemic because there are no strong deterrents.
Understand that bail is at the front end of these arrests and investigations, and if we don't fix that piece, everything that we invest in upstream and downstream won't have as significant an impact because those people are back out.
We're asking for changes on tools that already exist. We proposed a home invasion offense, which has language that has stronger penalties.
I'm hopeful that through all of this advocacy and through the bravery of the victims that stand with us here today, that we're going to see some meaningful change.
You play a critical role, every single person in this room, for the work that you do advocating for victims of crime.
So I just want to acknowledge that despite the fact that we're talking about a budget, we do feel that we have a role to shift systems. The advocacy on not just bail reform, as you've seen in auto theft, intimate partner violence, and now putting the emphasis back on victims and survivors is all part of it. And we know Mayor Brown returned from an announcement as it relates to federal changes that relate to the border security, organized crime, and all those issues. This is the hallmark of what we do at Peel. And there's a reason why I think these announcements are happening right here in our backyard is because the board and our agency, our members are good in that space and we advocate for it. So I did want to highlight the fact that part of what we're able to accomplish throughout the year, just because we want to, is systems related changes. And happy to highlight this last one. One thing I did want to highlight to the board is that we have, as you know, embarked on a body of work with you as a board and the Police Service and the Ontario Human Rights Commission. Part of that is to ensure that we are thoughtful in how we shift our mindset, the look and feel of our organization. And can I tell you, our women and men do a remarkable job. They're an extension of, one slide that I show you, but we're seeing it in how we serve the public. And in these cases, want to highlight that 264 of the recommendations are already adopted and completed by the organization. We're seeing changes in how not only the public interacts with us, but how our members are, reduction in injuries to members, despite the fact that the number of crime calls for service, the number of arrests annually continue to increase. We see better outcomes, not just for the public, but for our own people. And that was highlighted more recently in our use of force report, which the board received in our last meeting. But one of the things that we do is not just to show changes. We brought academics and other systems leaders beside us to show all the information we have in the data, but to look at what are the interconnectedness for why there are disparity in the community, whether it be health, housing, education, access to resources. We know are all intertwined in how people show up on a day-to-day basis in the calls for service that we go to. So one of the pieces of work that we're working with our community safety well-being and also the region is on looking at what a disparity reduction strategy would look like. So this is the whole idea of us responding to a call for service on a day-to-day basis is one thing, but how do we prevent having to go there in the first place? is one of the activities that we have committed to. I can tell you, we're seeing some remarkable outcomes in that space. With that, obviously, I think you have heard from me from year to year, and I think in 2024, I spoke specifically to you as a board and said, people were waiting, if not up to a week, more than a week, to have us respond to a call for service or break and enter. The amount of crime that we were seeing was becoming the hallmark of what people branded some of our municipalities in our region. And just seeing, even talking to President Woolley, seeing the reality in our platoons and on the street and the volume of calls that officers had to respond to, and not being able to get to quality of life issues really had a direct correlation to years of, and I can say this, and it is by no fault of anybody here in this room, just other priorities and underinvestment on the policing side. You couple that with the rate of growth and the complexities that we're seeing here. As I came to the board in 2024 and identified the fact that just to get to breathing, and not even to get to where our comparators were, was 600 officers. And as you all know, it's impractical or impossible and would have such a huge impact not only on the board, our budget, residents, to hire 600 all at once. We committed to a 3-year plan. And we're pleased that this last year, and thank you to the board for supporting that. The growth of this region, call volume, and the complexities all require us to make sure I can just get to somebody's house when they need help. And as I've told you before, nobody deserves, we wouldn't want that for any of our families to be in a situation where they need help and we're the only people they can call and we just can't be there. So as you just saw from the presentation from Superintendent Smith and Inspector Fowler, we are, will be 100% of our 300 will be hired within weeks. They're all gone to the front line. And we all often explain where they go are obviously phased in 3 to 4 times a year. The change in the lobbying from the board to increase the capacity at the police colleges allowed us to get everybody there. But there will be 50-50 split between Mississauga and Brampton. We know where we're growing. The officers have, obviously a really lengthy process to go through. It's 3 months at the police college plus multiple months being trained before we see the full actualization of them. And I think as a board, the true impacts will be actualized or realized as we get into the new year. But we're already seeing really critical improvements in response times. And I wanted to highlight that for you now. As you know, probably in 2023, and I'm looking at Deputy O'Doherty, there was an average wait time of 2 minutes. And the board and regional council were strong advocates for the misuse issue of 911 and calling 911. We have up to 2,000 calls a day coming in. We're one of the busiest call centers in this country. But we're pleased to continue to come back to you to tell you about the changes we've seen in this regard. We know that, Mayor Brown, you were advocating for changes to legislation, provincial legislation. The investments from the board into the police service in terms of hiring new communicators and the enhancements to technology, specifically NG 911, as the first largest police agency to adopt it, has had a direct impact on the length of time people are waiting when they're at their worst moments of life. And we're pleased to say, just in the last year or two, we've come down to a 12-second wait, which we'd love it to be no seconds, obviously, when you want to call. So there's more work to be done in every case of this presentation, but that is a direct result of the investments. Our job is to come back to you and tell you obviously in our community that if you give us the resources we need, we will show you the changes and impacts on the public. And so we're pleased on that. But that's just the first half of it. Once you get a hold of somebody on the end of the phone, we still need to send you an officer. And so if I could brand it differently, I wouldn't call them priority 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're all priorities for us. There are actually up to 9 priority classifications of calls for service. And I want to highlight the fact that priority 1 and 2 is pretty much what all of our officers do almost all the time. I think you, Chair Unica, highlighted working in a small rural urban or small municipality. They'd be thankful to get one of those calls, but our people are just going to them nonstop. Almost all of them don't have a lunch, and they're working a 12-hour shift day in and day out. And then our civilian call takers are on the front end of it. So one thing I need to highlight is when there is an immediate loss of life or an emergency that there is a serious risk to bodily harm or death, we go lights and sirens. Those are priority 1 and 2 calls. And our response times are almost always impeccable at that because that's our priority. What suffers, and I think what the board and our councillors and the municipality hears, and it bothers me and all of us to no end, is when we can't get to quality of life issues. And I just wanted to highlight priority 3 and 4, particularly priority 4 is what we hear the most is my car got stolen, my house got broken into. Can I tell you just in this year alone, the investments of getting us more boots on the grounds, we're seeing an absolute improvement in our response times. Is it perfect? Still don't want you to wait 2 hours when you watch somebody just steal your car to see one of my officers get there. But it's improving. 19% on things like trespass or somebody on your property, or if you're a business owner and somebody's causing a disturbance and you call us, it's still an hour for us to get there, which can be better. We all know that. Obviously, the break-in enters, the threats, disputes, still about an hour and a half on average. So there are still outliers that happen. And Mayor Brown, you and I just spoke about one which was pretty egregious, but at the same time, we had multiple shootings, missing person, and all the ones that are in priority 1 and 2. So our goal is to continue to show you how the investments are making a difference, but we still have farther to go. All of that is related to boots on the ground. One of the things we have heard and from many of our councillors in Brampton and Mississauga is, obviously people want to see us. We haven't seen an officer. Where are they? It could be as simple as a community center or a plaza or a problem in a particular neighborhood has resulted in the establishment of our CERT teams, or community intervention response teams. In the summer, you see a lot of them on bikes. They are in addition to our patrol officers that are responding to calls for service, but we're able to assign them to areas in the community that have the highest need. And as you can see, that's resulted in a presence in those specific areas by 90%. So we can map by X and Y locations, geography, how often an officer enters a community in an area. And one of the things that the deputy had mentioned is we want to give the public a dashboard to see what our response times and how we're doing. But we're able to see where those problem areas lie. And many times we're getting them through our counselors that are highlighting community problems. Just in this year alone are 71 projects. You can see the number of arrests that have resulted in there. And a lot of these officers are cross-trained in a variety of different areas. And I'd be happy to just show this video of the CERT teams.
We used a whole bunch of different police techniques. We utilized surveillance quite a bit to place certain targets in certain places and identify people. And through that, we were able to link a whole bunch of thefts together and place them at these 2 residences. I grew up here myself, and being able to be involved in the community and talk to people and solve some of these cases it's very rewarding.
Project Dry Shelves targeted high-value thefts from LCBOs across the GTA in Southern Ontario. Approximately $300,000 worth of alcohol was stolen, and 2 parties have been arrested with 35 criminal offenses.
Peel Police search warrant! We executed 6 search warrants on vehicles as well as residences. We arrested 7 parties and had a total of 15 charges laid against them for criminal offenses. Being able to connect as a community and provide a positive outcome that benefited multiple businesses and customers alike was very rewarding and very satisfying.
Project Nail and Bail is an ongoing investigation with 21 Division CERT working alongside businesses within 21 Division and the Canadian Border Services Agency. To date, $24,000 worth of stolen product has been recovered and more arrests are anticipated.
We ended up seizing 3 stolen motorcycles, over 9,000 grams of cannabis, 150 grams of cocaine, 50 grams of crack cocaine, as well as 50 grams of fentanyl. We want to thank the residents of Peel for obviously providing us with the information that allows us to go out and do our jobs thoroughly, which allowed us to take a large quantity of drugs off the street and hopefully keep the streets safer going forward.
I'm pleased to advise that CERT team that's deployed to each division right across the region would not have been possible if it wasn't for our last budget possibilities. Those type of complaints where business owners or community members have an issue in their community would have fallen to a patrol officer who doesn't have the discretionable time to necessarily put the emphasis that we've been able to do. They're versatile and able to move around throughout the region, and we're happy to highlight some of the outcomes just on their presence itself. The next aspect I wanted to highlight was our ability, based on our last year's budget, to continue to emphasis on road safety and traffic safety. We know we have probably the largest volume of traffic anywhere in Canada right here coming through Peel Region. Road safety and pedestrian safety is number 1. I know it's a priority for the region of Peel as well. The ability to increase our Safer Roads team has allowed us to put emphasis on traffic enforcement in spaces which we weren't able to do before. There has been a 79% increase in our high traffic complaint zones, which we call, I think Deputy Andrews would give me the acronym properly, but they're the ones where if in a community we're getting a lot of complaints from residents, we have the data that we work with engineering from the municipalities that show collisions, pedestrian or otherwise, is we are now able to put more effort into those spaces. Is it enough? No, we can't be, unfortunately, on every street, which is possible, but it is a significant improvement in enforcement hours. Some of the numbers are there as well. From 2022 to 2024, we have seen a reduction in fatalities. And, you know, we don't claim ownership for all of it, but our ability to focus on the worst drivers in our community and targeting them, enforcement on impaired driving, and to be in the places that we couldn't have done before, we believe has a significant impact insofar as that the last 2 years we've seen a 48% reduction in road fatalities. And I know the year is not over yet, so we're not taking stock on these situations, but we lose more people here for pedestrian or road fatalities than we do for homicides. And do I believe that there's a displaced sense of emphasis on it? I do, actually. But these are the things that we continue to put our efforts into. This slide here indicates a 5-year trend. And the 5-year trend on this obviously shows an alarming increase over a period of time as it pertains to 4 categories of the most violent issues that we see in the community. They also reflect themselves in the Federal Crime Severity Index, which we do report to you on. And although we hit a time where in 2024 we had never seen ever in the history of Peel, we are seeing reductions in these areas. And that is got a direct relationship to the extraordinary work that our women and men do in certain spaces, particularly in the four of them. As the board will recall, we've been able to expand our central robbery team. We've been able to support the extortion task force, which has dealt with some of the shootings and home invasions. Our homicide bureau, as well as our divisional investigative teams, have been working tremendously in this area. And some of the projects that we've talked about by name may not resonate with you, but Project Ghost and Night Train have led to multiple arrests that have dismantled organized networks that are causing the most harm for us. As you can see, there are some projections because we're not yet quite at year end. These are the results when we can put attention to the areas that are causing the most harm for our community, that we want to come back to you and show you. Even though we're seeing reductions, you can still see that the projections are still higher than they were 2 years ago, if not over the last 10 years, which is part of the issue with violent crime trends. So not only are we seeing an increase in number of occurrences and calls for service for our officers here in this region, it's direct correlation to rapid population growth, but we're also seeing the number of arrests and charges. And if you look at the number of arrests, which has a relatively 16% increase over a period of time, we're seeing a 22% increase in the number of charges. Why that's significant is because we don't have the resources to respond and investigate the crimes. We can't resolve them either. And this is an important set of data to show you. The right side of the screen speaks to an alarming trend, which is violent occurrences continue to increase in our region. So yes, we talk about quality of life, those priority 3 and 4 calls, but the violent offenses continue to be. In fact, the number of charges are up to 36% increase, and this is where we see the year-end projection going. So what that means for our officers is that it's not only just an increased volume and harm that we're seeing in the community. If you were to talk to anybody on our justice side, the complexity of crimes has changed so much. Many of it requires resources that extend days, if not months, just to resolve a crime. The prosecution of them are in the millions when it comes to something like just a shooting or a homicide. And that continues for quite a long time. But what we want to know is, and want you to know, is that they're not isolated to us. We're probably the only municipality that has to respond to transnational organized crime. It's not just what you see in the TV. Both Deputy Molinovich and his team and I had an opportunity to speak to major city chiefs to speak about how issues in other countries are affecting us locally here, and also driving organized crime in a way that we've never experienced before. So this slide speaks to the complexities of organized crime, and I want to highlight that the results of resourcing us have been able to show an immense amount of charges being laid. So this is just in the last calendar year, there's been 465 charges. Part of the elements of what is seized or recovered are stolen property, illicit items, firearms that we know are predominantly coming from the U.S.
People have had enough. The residents of Peel have had enough. They've had enough of the violence in their streets, of jewelry store robberies, of smash and grabs, of having their car stolen.
What makes this region vibrant and as beautiful as it is the diversity that it brings, but it also has drawn criminal organizations to seek that as a vulnerability.
I really want you to begin to consider the experiences of the people that were affected by the crimes carried out by this group. That this experience was a violation of their life, their peace, and their freedom.
It's essential that police, whether here in Peel or across Ontario, are empowered to take necessary actions to keep our communities safe. Our government understands that professional, well-resourced policing is key to addressing crime.
The job of the Police Service Board is to ensure that our police service has the tools and the resources it needs to act when public safety is at risk.
Peel Police Service has done everything that they can to protect the incredible communities. It shows that when given the tools and resources, our officers can accomplish absolutely anything.
This should serve as a very, very simple message. If you target our community, we will arrest you and bring you to justice.
And this is why I'm so grateful for the leadership of Peel Police, for taking swift, strategic, and effective action. This is exactly why you invest in policing, to make sure they have the capacity to respond.
I guess the message is pretty clear. Our community will not accept it. Our police service will not accept it. And those involved in criminal networks, if they ignore it, we will, without a doubt, find, arrest, and charge you.
As you know, and I think probably the whole country knows, at one point we had the infamous title of being the highest auto theft capital in North America. We won an hour at its worst, which led not only just the police service, but the board to advocate for changes. Part of our work has been not only the Auto Theft Summit that we hosted, but going to Ottawa to speak to the Prime Minister to advocate for changes. It is the third largest support for organized crime internationally is auto theft, right behind fraud and drugs. And we know that it comes back to our community in the forms of organized crime, funding organized crime in ways that we have never seen. So the leadership that we have taken in that role, I can tell you it's something for Peel to be proud of on a national level, speaking with auto manufacturers, border officials, federal government, all levels of authorities, the private sector, and educating our community. We've seen a 40% reduction in auto theft, which is greater than any other municipality that we can see across the GTA, at least in the province. It still means, though, that it's still a problem. It's still at an all-time high, but these are some of the data points that we've seen from the auto theft. So I just want to highlight that auto theft is directly connected to home invasions, which is directly connected to organized crime and drug trafficking. So they're now sadly shifted from taking your car from your driveway to now entering your home to take your keys. And in almost every case, and this week I had the opportunity to speak to the Premier, the Attorney General, and Solicitor General. In every case, about 56% of them are violent offenders. Almost 36% of the time, the homeowner is injured. There are legitimate issues, and part of that, as you saw in one of the sound bites, is we have been advocating to the federal government for the inclusion of new offenses. It's not just a bail, a reverse onus, dealing with firearms, but treating home invasions in a way that is different than just a theft or robbery. And so this continues to be part of our work. So some of the animated slides show the reduction in numbers and the number of stolen vehicles recovered. Part of the question has been, well, my car has been taken, I didn't see the officer come. I think we're in excess of, obviously in excess of 50% of the vehicles are actually recovered. We then obviously have to deal with insurance companies. Reduction in home invasions is also an effort that we have made a priority for the police service in terms of resourcing teams that are exclusively focused on mitigating home invasions. So as you can see, pressures still exist. but we're appreciative of the resourcing that we're getting because we're able to orient them to the greatest areas of risk that we hear not only from you, the community, in the news, but our people see on a day-to-day basis. So with this, we'll transition into our budget slides, which are directly related to the pressures that we're seeing. So, of course, as I highlighted, last year's funding has not only helped us to improve our presence, response times, as I indicated, up to 18 or 19%, we've seen a change, a reduction in auto theft up to 40%, 40% reduction in home invasions. But some of the impact factors of that are as a result of the 300 new officers and, of course, the civilians that we've hired. The ability to expand our auto theft teams has all been part of some of the outcomes we've seen. And that is an ability to serve the community better. I do want to highlight that if you recall through the budget process in 2021, when I came before the board, we made a distinct effort to tell you that as your new chief, looking at the organization, there are opportunities, obviously, to think of doing things differently. In year one, we reallocated 193 officers to new priorities. That's a reallocation within my complement. We also deferred, I think, 67 in that first year. In year two, when I came back to you, you can see we're almost getting down to the bone of what I can do. There's little left on the bone, but we did reallocate 46 new officers that year as well, and then defer up to 60. That is a progression of us looking within the four walls of the organization and finding opportunities to do things better. But as you know, we got to the point where you just can't do any more with what you've got, particularly when the region is growing at an exponential rate. And Sharon Unica, I'm not going to quote you on adding Halifax and Montreal to our population, but that's the reality. And we know that's just the official population. And the complexities of crime and the fact that we still can't get to people's houses led us to our significant needs. And so that 3-year plan to look at hiring 600 is really what we're coming back to you this year with. And this is the last of that 3-year plan. After that, our objective, and it's in the business case and proposal over the next 3 years, is to just remain with growth. And of course, throughout the year, we'll have to deal with shifts, but your investments thus far, even on technology, has improved it. You know that we're using AI on phone calls to discern 911 calls. The ability to have online reporting. Do we need an officer at every call? No. So we've got special constables, which are amazing members of our team that are deployed right across every division to also supplement the core function that our officers and civilians are doing. And these are all things that I can tell you no other police agency in North America is doing it to the extent that we are. So with that, I'm going to invite Deputy Jackson to join me as I move forward in the slides. As Mr. Bowden highlighted, this year's budget is a 9.9% increase, which allows us to hire 175, which will get us to the 600 complement. The 25 civilian professionals continue to be part of our growth plan. As you know, they are the bread and butter and backbone for us to get just the day-to-day business done. And many of them are actually, we consider our frontline first responders, particularly the communicators, dispatchers, and those in our records bureau. So getting the calls faster, being present more, making the streets safer, and dealing with the complexities of crime that we see here are all part of the outcomes of being able to resource us in a really critical way. And so with that, Lauren, I'll pass the next slide to you.
Thank you, Chief. Getting into the numbers, this budget, as the Chief has said, reflects a continued focus on our front line and improving police presence in our community. The $30.3 million, or 4% of that increase, is for new staffing. It is the 175 sworn officers and 25 civilian professionals the chief has spoken to. We mitigated the total cost of new hires once again this year on a one-time basis by deferring the cost of some of the 175 officers to 2027. This specifically was an $8.5 million deferral to an outer year. To achieve the service outcomes articulated by the chief a moment ago, the 175 officers will be deployed to the front line to continue to enhance our police presence in the community, including improved response call times and strengthening our investigative capacity in response to increasingly complex and violent crime. Secondly, we have 25 civilian professionals to strengthen our service and our ability to adequately and effectively support our frontline growth, to respond to the evolving nature of crime, which you've heard about today, and to the continued modernization of how we deliver services to better meet the needs of our community. These include additions to communications, including our Community Safety Operations Center, intelligence and digital forensics and analytics, crime analytics, as well as other key support areas. I may take a moment here just to speak to efficiencies, because looking for efficiencies in our budget isn't a one-and-done exercise. Is it a constant and continuous activity that we undertake throughout every year? Perhaps a really great example of that, and the chief spoke to reallocations and efficiencies of our uniform complement, is also to speak to the scrutiny we put on our civilian workforce. And last year, if you recall at budget, the chief spoke to the fact that since 2021 to 2024, we had reallocated and found efficiencies equivalent of 31 civilian professionals. Once again this year, things change, operations are dynamic. We're always looking at the efficiencies yielded from investments in things like technology. We look for efficiencies, and this year we were able to repurpose 7 civilian positions and continue to use this analogy, squeeze as much juice out of the orange as we can. And so we never believe we've done that, and we continue to go back each year. And our asks every year and our outer year forecasts are continuously updated in the face of this reality. A second piece that I may take a moment to touch on here as it pertains to staffing is also on the heels of a question we received last year at budget, which was something around the reality of being a first responder and emergency response operation, of how many people in your workforce are off at any given time. But of course, we are required to compensate while they are off and hopefully on a path to returning to work. At that time, we were able to say that of those that are off, we remain below the provincial, significantly below the provincial average. And I can tell you again, that remains true today. Why I bring this up is because in 2021, we were a little over 8% of our service was off on what we call lost time. That includes people off on WSIB, so workplace safety and insurance. Those are for injuries that take place in the workplace. There's also a percentage of our members who are off on long-term disability. Those are for things that happen outside of the workplace. Today, I'm standing before you to say that in 2025, we have seen a 2.6% reduction in the amount of people that are off on lost time. First and foremost, why that's a good thing is that we have more of our members who are well, and we know that when people are off work for whatever reason, that also impacts the world around them, the people in their life. Operationally, how that of course impacts us is we have more people at work doing the job they signed up to do, and we are bringing people back to work, whether for physical injury or psychological injury, where we can, faster. It almost seems a bit crude, but how this translates into a cost efficiency is that 2.6% reduction equates to a cost efficiency of $6.6 million. As it pertains to the remainder of the 9.9% increase, the remaining $45.1 million, or 5.9%, is the operational cost to maintain our service levels. So to break this down briefly for you, $24.7 million, or 3.2%, of that increase as a result of the salary and benefit cost increase in accordance with the collective agreements. There's $7.6 million, or 1% of the increase, due to cost of living or inflationary pressures, to foundational operating cost, of which some of which I mentioned a few moments ago, including subscriptions, some of which are body-worn cameras, automated license plate recognition, and digital evidence management, as well as utilities and inflationary costs on contracts and maintenance, including our building maintenance, snow removal, or software maintenance. And lastly, 12.8 million, or 1.7% of that increase, is as a result of the cost of the officers that we deferred from the 2025 budget request that are now sitting in our 2026 budget. This 1.7% is mildly offset, pardon me, by the 2026 officers that we are deferring to 2027. Lastly, typically a line you may see within this table that you would note is the required increase to our ongoing reserve contributions. It's noticeably absent, which is why I'm calling it out. This is because of a rigorous review of our capital plan and forecasted spend, which enabled us to avoid the need to increase our ongoing reserve amount this year, resulting in a one-time cost avoidance benefit. This is highlighted in the table at right, summarizing the 2026 budget increase breakdown. The table at right also captures our overall composition of the increase in a different way than the story I've just taken you through, and that is that 90% of the increase is attributable to wages of our people and 10% to the operating costs to maintain our service levels. Chief. Just turning now to our capital budget. Our capital budget is embodied by the fact that we are building for the future today by addressing our growth through infrastructure. As the board knows, we take our because the board does as well, we take our options very seriously, seeking out efficiencies to optimize and reduce our costs at every turn, and the 2026 and 10-year capital budgets are reflective of that. A tenet of both our operational and capital budgets is investments to support building back after years of underinvestment, but also planning thoughtfully for sustainable growth in the future, ensuring that the service's ability to adapt and respond to the growth of the region continues. The board is so familiar with this, but no truer is this reflected than in our physical footprint, right? We have mentioned before that we have worked within a 4-divisional model for over 40 years, in spite of the fact that the region has grown by well over 400% its population in that same time frame, and is forecasted to grow, again, reported population, by another 14 to 15% by just 2031 alone, and that is roughly the current size of the city of Vaughan in our region in 6 years. The funding of new construction and renovations is needed, bottom line, to support our front line and growing needs of this community. As you can see, I've been speaking, what's kind of rolling through on the slides is a capture of our current footprint, but also ongoing and planned builds that reflect our investment in growth through infrastructure. The board's familiar, but I'll just take a moment to highlight some of these. First and foremost, we have our operational support facility. This is a building that will house regionally focused services, including 911 communications, records, IT, community safety, well-being, and others. It is on budget and slated to open in early 2027. It will also consolidate outdated buildings and reduce long-term maintenance and energy costs. We also have 23 Division, which is being built to better meet the needs of the North. It will be home to over 400 officers who will be deployed from there. It is also on budget and slated to open at the end of 2026. Since we were before you a year ago, and the board will know that in September, we were very pleased to be able to break ground on the revitalization of our Sir Robert Peel Centre and 22 Division, with Sir Robert Peel, or SRP, being a nearly 50-year-old building. And just to highlight that a revitalized, future-ready SRP will bring together key operations to better serve both officers and our community, including a first-of-its-kind centralized detainee processing unit equipped with biometric monitoring. This service delivery model will also help get our officers back on the road quicker while ensuring quality care for those in our custody, and a forensic identification services lab to aid in increasingly complex investigations. We also continue to work to secure land for an operational division in the south end of Mississauga to better meet the needs of a very busy south end. As well, in Mississauga this year, we will be cutting ribbon on a second location for for Safe Centre South, which we all know represents the leading model for responding to and supporting IPV survivors and their families. I'd be remiss not to say just two things here. This year also, we were Rethinking the Future is a global or international award that is designed for professionals under the premise of sustainability and innovation 23 Division and OSF were awarded first and second runner-up respectively, and this is as a result of the architectural design work that was done with the vendor with whom we work with on those buildings. I highlight this just to extend what the chief had been speaking to earlier, that we are pressing into being progressive and innovative in all facets of what we do and being recognized as such. Touching on more specifically now the 2026 capital budget, it's reflective of making smart, lean, and focused investments. The plan reflects $378.5 million in investments in critical infrastructure to help our frontline officers and civilian professionals serve the public in modern, efficient, and cost-effective ways. These investments, while not always visible, directly support our focus on community safety. This template here illustrates projects that are either, all our projects are either state of good repair or growth related, and they are funded through 4 streams: reserves, fully funded through and by the service, development charges, debt, which helps fund our new builds, or external funding, which is for our VCOM or radio network that we share with regional municipal partners. Some highlights for you in this plan include $314 million to land and facilities. I'm highlighting just some of the more material ones. Land and facilities makes up over 80% of this year's capital budget ask. Most notably in there is $275.7 million for South Division construction. And this allows us to start to draft the tender for the design and construction of South Division, minimizing the time to construction parallel to the formal land purchase of the South. Additionally, we have enhancements to our public safety broadband network, which builds in resiliency into our ability to stay online and respond to calls for service when other areas may be impacted by a telecommunications blackout. We also have the revitalization and refresh of our mobile data unit, or MDUs as they're more commonly known, which is in all of our frontline patrol vehicles, upgrades and maintenance on our digital evidence management, as well as investments to maintain state of good repair on vital technological infrastructure, including cybersecurity infrastructure maintenance, and our network and server equipment, to name but a few. The budget is but one part of a 10-year plan that is forward-looking and focused on ensuring Peel Regional Police can continue to adapt responsively to this ever-changing region, which really brings me briefly to touch on the 10-year capital plan. It's a plan for the future needs of this region, ensuring our technology, facilities, and equipment are maintained. At a total of $1.77 billion, investments are strategic, they are planful and phased, reflective of a recognized need to plan for our growth and the associated demand through a lens of doing so as sustainably as possible. We ensure the capital plan includes regular replacements for many things I've already spoken to today, including vehicles, specialized equipment, technology, systems, infrastructure, and state of good repair projects. The investments in facilities very much continue in the 10-year capital plan, allowing for our continued expansion relative to the growth of the region and associated demand on our service, and the state of good repair of projects of our existing buildings and facilities to ensure we continue to optimize and get as much as we can out of our existing footprint as we grow. Major projects include a retrofit of 12 Division, renovations to Emile Cobb, replacement and refresh of our computer-aided dispatch system, as well as the refresh of life cycle refresh of things like our portable radios, automated license plate recognition, MDUs, and service pistols. In closing, the budget's financial overview, the service and the board, of course, has an obligation to our residents and our businesses. As always in the planning of our budget, we are looking at all possibilities to reduce and mitigate cost. That said, last year we forecast the need to hire 175 officers in 2026 in a continued effort to right-size our service. And as we all know, new people and staffing drives the increase of any particular budget. The 2026 budget reflects an unyielding commitment, and I leave you with this, to progress, to the preservation of adequate and effective policing, and to fiscal responsibility, exploring every measure reasonable to mitigate the impact on the taxpayers of the region of this continued public safety imperative. What you've heard today is that I believe those investments are working, and our community both needs and deserves the continued impact of ongoing investment, which this budget reflects. With that, I'll turn it back to the Chief for final remarks.
Thank you, Lauren. Needless to say, this region is not the way it was 10 years ago. And some of the greatest things about our region, the complexities, but the demographics, the business growth, just the attention. We have a denser, younger population. All are amazing things, but they also bring unique challenges. This year's budget, and I stand before you to tell you that I'm confident that this year's budget will keep our community at the point of adequate and effective. But what that means to me is that we need to get to places quicker. People need to see us on the streets. We need to be able to respond to what causes the greatest harm in our community in a way that's responsible and necessary. And the 175 officers, the 9.9%, will continue to allow us to do that as we've committed to over the last 3 years. And so with that, I do want to say, I want to thank the board for your contributions to this long journey and for allowing me, Lauren, and our team to be able to present this to you. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. I have questions or comments. Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Chair Nika, and let me just say, first of all, how impressive it is how you were able to utilize the resources last year in such a positive manner, looking at the response times, the success stories. Sometimes in the news we hear about the big success stories when there's a major project, but there are so many small projects that I had no idea about either. And so here we are on the Police Services Board and some of the incredible police success stories that are still new to us. I want to make sure residents know about this. And so some of the videos that you put out, would love to see if we can share that broadly into the community. I know you're a big fan of transparency and letting the public understand how the Peel Police work and feel and how you are different. But that's just some extraordinary success in what was a major investment year. And it shows that when the chief and his team is given resources, they deliver results. I know this year's budget is a bit bare bones, and I think you've done the right balance in terms of what's necessary for public safety, but knowing that people are struggling with an affordability crisis. And so eager to support this at this board and also at regional council. The one thing that two things I want to note. One, obviously we had this tragedy this week with Savannah Kula on the heels of too many similar tragedies, and the investments you've made into combating intimate partner violence and domestic violence has been really commendable and made Peel a leader. And so I think when it comes to regional council, that should be very, very clear about what that investment's enabled and how it compares to where we were before. But just maybe for the record, what was the size of our domestic violence unit before you started as chief?
We didn't have a dedicated one, so it was on the shoulders of our frontline officers and investigators.
And the reason I say that is in the region of Peel, we've declared a gender-based violence epidemic. It was a bit hollow to declare an epidemic and not provide resources. But thanks to your targeted focus and the resources in last year's budget and previous budgets, I think we can hold our head high that we are combating this scourge in our society, and we'll continue to do more as we need to do more. I think I want to note is we've asked to look at the airport costs. I saw a little asterisk there on the screen that sort of got me a little bit. It said 100% paid for by the GTHA. But I know that's not the case. When you look at the Delta airline crash, the shooting, in terms of the work that we need to do. And so I think it would be helpful, not to take away from this great, impressive presentation, but I think the one that goes to regional council should all include not just what the GTHA pays for, but the services the Peel Police provide at the GTHA. We don't have a capacity when you send officers in to respond to an incident to send them a bill. And so would that be possible just to make sure, given the interest the regional council has and given the interest I believe our police services board have, would it be good to have that? Would it be possible to have that included, a full sort of transparency on the cost associated with policing that zone?
Yes, sir. We can absolutely add that. And I'd go as far as to say it's the geographic surrounding area to the airport has, we joke about the gold heist because it's a Netflix series waiting to happen, but that was an immense burden for us that has a direct correlation to cargo inbound, outbound from the airport. So these ancillary impacts that make it actually a border point. It is, and I know my chiefs in Windsor and otherwise, are asking for support because they have to deal with inbound, outbound, but we're the same thing. They're not included, obviously, in our necessarily in our cost recovery model, but be happy to discuss that and happy to present you the data that we've got, at least for the last year, without a doubt.
And for my board colleagues, why that's important is there's a $1.3 billion border security plan that's been unveiled by Ottawa, not fully broken out, but it appears that it's all going to the RCMP. And there are some airports where the RCMP are the lead, and Border Patrols, obviously. That's not the case here at Pearson, despite we have the busiest airport in the country. And so to really lock that down and secure it and deal with public safety, I think we need to have a transparency on the cost so we know what our ask is. And obviously I'm in the process of trying to push the federal government on that ask, so I think that transparency would be very helpful. Thank you.
We can do that, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't really want to repeat what Mayor Brown has said. I was going to ask a little bit or talk a little bit about the airport, but I think he's addressed that and really that it is a border, essentially right here in our region. I really just want to take the opportunity, Chief and Lauren, to thank you. You did say that this has been a year-long process. I've been at the table with you for a year at Finance Committee and understanding the challenges that the police service has faced. But to roll up your sleeves and get to work and really look at this, Mayor Brown said bare bones budget, but bare bones with a lot of things moving forward. I want to emphasize, and I've said this before, on the great work, whether it's videos or other smaller, larger projects, to really brag a little bit from a service perspective on the great work that you do out there in the community. Sometimes it does get lost, and I think it's important really to continue to highlight those great things, whether they're through press conferences or videos or other things, just to get out to the community. We did have a couple of residents here, which again, I did appreciate their commitment to coming and making a deputation today. But to hear this and the details and the way you're able to describe it in really simple terms, and I can assure you, sitting on Finance Committee, it's not always simple to go through, but the way that you've delivered this and expressed it really, I think, speaks for itself. So, happy to support this, wanted to tell you that, but really wanted to thank you. Again, this last year's budget certainly was extremely difficult. I know it was difficult for everybody. Cost of living and other things are on the rise, but policing is something that's always needs to be at the forefront. I think you've expressed that not only in your budget, but in your daily work as a service. And really on behalf of my residents specifically, want to thank you for that. It was a lot of work that went into this, and work that I certainly will not take credit for. But again, to Lauren and to her team, and Chief, to you and to the deputies, just thank you. And again, happy to support this. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Coley.
Waiting for the red. Just a couple of things. First of all, I want to echo Mayor Brown, and I'm glad you brought that up with the IPV. I think that's just such an important point, and thank you for putting that in place. And it shows truly the engagement into understanding our community and what we're going through. So thank you for that. I also want to take time to say thank you to both the chief and the team, and then our Finance Committee on the board as well, because I know it's a year-long process. I know how engaged Mayor Brown, I know Al Boughton as the chair, and as well Matt Mahoney, how involved you guys have been. So thank you for all of that. And of course, Mrs. Serpe and our chair as well. I just had one quick question. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. And it was definitely a very rigorous review, and I think it clearly demonstrated the willingness for trade-offs. You can see that. But with that in mind, and you don't have to go into detail, but even at a high level, maybe you could say what compromises were made to achieve this year's budget, because I think it's important for us to also understand what went in there.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coley. I think, the public should just know we're not going to compromise on safety. So hence the 175 is still the number which we stayed true to, and we do know that it is an impact on our public. All of us get impacted by it. We all have homes and families. I guess things that will happen this year in year, I'll happy to invite Lauren to speak to them, but we will stretch some things to make sure this year can be manageable for not only the service and our needs, but for the community. And some of those will be in-year deferrals. Obviously, from our civilian standpoint, we have a need to continue to grow in those spaces. As you know, we're building this centralized processing center. So we need to start hiring the specials for their communicators, et cetera, still are needed. But Lauren, perhaps maybe at the highest level, you can highlight those aspects.
Sure. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Vice Chair, for the question. I may answer this in two parts, and just to top up what the Chief was saying, maybe my first kind of response to you would be, I think the compromise less than really what we've done this year is stray from or depart from what we would say is leading practice in how you would budget for a police service that is as large and dynamic an organization and an operation. So to depart from that on a near-term, short-term basis is tenable. To do it over the medium or long term begins to be untenable in that decisions made for reasons that are financial start to impact your operation more visibly. So to kind of put this, my second part to my answer would be into a bit of an analogy is, if you buy a house, it has a roof, it has windows, it's there to keep your family, your friends safe and warm, it heats things. And over time, to keep it in that state and to sometimes even make it more efficient, you might replace your furnace with a heat pump. You are required to replace your roof over time so you stay dry. You replace your windows over time to stay dry and warm and ensure your house is working very efficiently in an optimized way. And you may make decisions at times where you go, oh, my roof's leaking faster than I thought, and I could replace my roof this year, but I'd like to not spend that money, and I'll do that in 2 or 3 years. Well, what you do is, of course, you get that one-time saving in that year, but you incur a bit of risk in that your roof becomes a little past its best before date. You may have to repair it, patchwork over those years, and that's additional costs. When I translate that to kind of a police workforce, every year we're purchasing equipment to keep our people safe. We're investing in technology that helps them do their job. And we can make decisions to extend life cycles in a near-term basis. If we perpetuate that, we've grown, that requires equipment for that growth. We've onboarded new technologies to make us more adequate, effective, and accountable. That also brings more pressure into our capital budget and need to continue to sustain that investment. And so to kind of draw those two parallels, the decisions we made this year are those one-time measures where we've extended life cycles. We have been more conservative on things like benefits utilization, inflationary impacts on our contracts that realistically aren't something that would be sustained over time. One thing I may say as an example that we did, and it ties to something I said earlier, is with respect to individuals who are on long-term WSIB, a practice that is embarked on not just by ourselves, but other services as well, is that once individuals unfortunately reach something called past their maximum medical recovery, it's usually 2 years plus, we contemplate moving them into a cost center that's outside our budget. Of course, legislatively, we continue to compensate those individuals and support them, but what it allows us to do is free up those complement positions, right? It's an additional cost because now you're paying for 2, but you free up your complement. And this year we did not do that. So we saved money by not moving people into the cost center, but we have complement positions that may be being housed by individuals who aren't using them in the way they would ideally be used to support the community and the service. Lastly, what I would say with respect to civilians, the 25 civilian professionals, I would just frame it is not an ask that is, these would be nice to have to do innovative things or allow us to try some things in new areas. I would frame it as this is the minimal number we could come before the board and the chief confidently say this is an adequate and effective budget. Below 25 would start to put us into an untenable place to maintain the service delivery that we currently provide.
Thank you. And Mr. Carby.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly want to echo the sentiments of my fellow board members in thanking the Chief, Deputy Chief for the presentation, and my fellow board members who are on the Finance Committee who did just a tremendous job in preparing this report for our review today. I could certainly see the effort made for being sensitive to the need to watch our budget and keep the numbers as low as possible, recognizing the impact in community. So thank you for that effort. I want to speak, though, a little bit about a theme that has happened since last year and this year also, and it's one that is focused around transparency in our budget process. As much as you are presenting, the Chief and Deputy Chief, the budget, it's the board's budget. And so as the board, in my estimation, has done what is required to ensure that not just the process, but the numbers are as transparent as possible to community, I wonder if we could speak a little bit to what our process is. Even the deputations that happened earlier on, the theme of lack of transparency seems to be coming from community. I wonder if we can speak to that, maybe a process question, and secondly, where are the numbers to be seen so that community members can feel that this is not behind the scenes where only board members are aware. I see an appendix in the presentation here that gives me quite a lot of details, line by line, down to the equipment that is being spent on and all of that. And to my understanding, this is made public. So I'm curious, maybe our community just is not fully aware of what the process is and how they can engage to ensure that they too are aware of the numbers. So maybe about process and where the information is available for feedback.
Mr. Carby, maybe I'm going to start with our executive director. Very good question. Glad I was going to touch upon that as well. Maybe our executive director and then the chief might top it up through to the Mr. Serpe.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Yeah, Mr. Kirby, absolutely. The budget report presentation and business plan, which does provide what I think when we hear from the community who keep asking that they don't see a line-by-line breakdown of the budget, that's where they'd find that. That document is made public every year. It's made public on our website. It's made public on Peel Regional Police's website. It's also public once it's presented at Regional Council as well on the Regional Council agenda. So certainly this information has always been public and will be made public again. In fact, if you go to the board's website now, you'll be able to find all this information. And we'll continue to do that. Deputy Duarte spoke a little bit earlier about a public-facing dashboard. It's been something we've been working on as we've moved forward in data collection and analytics and how we can present that. A lot of the information that we present during our budget will be made public through a public-facing dashboard that will be updated pretty regularly. All the information that we make public will now be able to be found in one place. So certainly our plan is always to be as open and public and transparent with this information as possible.
Chief, did you want to add anything to that or through to staff?
Thank you, through you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Serpe, for those comments. I would just top up to Mr. Serpe that throughout the year, at different levels within our finance function, we're working very closely with our colleagues and counterparts in corporate services at the region. Our process very closely, if not identically, mirrors theirs as it pertains to when and how often we meet with our finance committee. We report on our financial position 3 times a year in line with not just board policy, but regional policy. It follows their templates. Those are also provided to council and made public. They speak to our spend, our actual spend versus forecasted spend within the year, our reserve balances and activity as well as outlining ongoing capital project activity and operational pressures in year that we're looking closely at as we continue to manage our financial position is really kind of where I would leave you. And I think I would also say, and I think we can, that we're going to be before council on November 20th, and it was a tough year last year, Deputy Mayor Mahoney outlined, and we're very committed to ensuring that both our councillors and of course the public are aware of all the ways that we have already and will continue to provide this information in a very transparent and detailed way.
Thank you, Chair, and to Rob and our Chief and Deputy Chief for the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. In conclusion, then, the points that I've made before dealing with receipt, a nice illustration comes to mind that maybe is helpful to taxpayers. So this isn't the budget that we, in theory, presented today. We've been working on it all year. So a lot of times people say, you don't ask a lot of questions. We've been asking them all year. This is how we got to the subcommittees, the great work that Mr. Boughton's done as chair. This is no surprise to us. I juxtapose it as when we present the regional budget to my council colleagues, we spend 4 full days on it, but it's the first time the councillors have seen it. Staff go and do their work, bring a budget, and it's not a final budget. They were this, and if you want this and this, the tax increase might be this. You want, oh, here's another, okay, let's go back, run those numbers, and then after about 4 full day sessions, we arrive at some. It's a little different at the police board. We do that all year long. I love the comment, this is our budget. So this is the budget that we were seized of, and it's the one that we are presenting today, and that explains a little bit of the differences, because someone might say, why didn't you ask 3 days of questions? We've been asking a year of questions at the committee level to arrive at this budget. And we have done so, which will now be referred on, a very public process for our regional colleagues as well. So with that, I'm going to ask for a receipt as moved by Councillor Mahoney. All those in favor? That is carried. That concludes the public portion of our agenda. So I have a motion from Mr. Boughton that we adjourn formally, and I will ask you to stay in place so we can promptly deal with the in-camera. So I've got to thank everybody who's been here, those who I do not require, do not needed for the in-camera. If you could make your way with my thanks for your being here, we will convene immediately.